Hello and welcome. My name is Bryan Felt, Director of Athletics from St. Peter's University. And on behalf of AthleticDirectorU, today we are joined by Chrissi Rawak of University of Delaware and Mark Wilson from Tennessee Tech. Thanks for being here, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Happy to be here.
So today's topic is, it's a broad one in a sense, but it's one that certainly is very impactful for all of us in our departments, and that's satisfying multiple constituencies, especially as it comes to decision making. So Chrissi, we'll start with you.
Sure.
Obviously, as an athletic director, we're juggling all the time. We've got certainly plenty of different things kind of happening, so we have to kind of keep a lot of different things at the front of the table. But with all the different stakeholders we have to include in our day-to-day decisions, what is, if you have a general rule that you might have when it comes to balancing all these ideas and opinions that are coming at you?
Yeah, great question, and not an easy one to do. I would actually say, a big part of it for us at Delaware and the work that we do is we actually involve them right from the beginning. So oftentimes, if they are aware and a part of building the strategy and understanding, what direction are you trying to go, it allows you then to involve them appropriately where you need to, and oftentimes they then understand the choices and the decisions you're making. I do think that particularly in athletics, we actually created an audience wheel. I'll call it a stakeholder wheel for this conversation. We have about 12 different audiences that we know we serve, and we serve them in a variety of different ways, everything from the student athlete to our student athlete alumni to our university campus to media, and every choice we make, every decision we make that we anticipate, we look at that wheel and we say, okay, who are we serving here? We're serving everybody, but how do we communicate that? What are the decisions we're making? How are we communicating those decisions? What are the consequences to the decisions? How do we best deliver the information to them? Is it a phone call? Is it an email? And so, you've got to constantly be thinking about it, because I think one thing that we all know about athletics is people are very invested, and a big part of how they're invested is their emotional investment. It's one of the blessings and the curses, if you will, about athletics. Yeah. And so they're invested in different ways than they are in other things. And so keeping them close, but helping them really understand the strategy right from the beginning and what you're trying to drive towards, I think helps keep them all connected to what you're doing.
So a lot of education in the process.
A lot of education and involvement, right? They're invested, and we treat them like they're invested. And that's key.
Mark, how about you?
Well, one of the things, I think we all have our culture, the culture of our university, the culture of our community, the culture. I mean, if we have talked about our culture, then a lot of our stakeholders know what those decisions are already going to lead to. So if you have a strategic plan, you have your culture, a lot of those stakeholders you're communicating with, they can already anticipate what that decision may be, and whatever that decision is, because they're already attuned up front, like you said, engaging them up front. So we really try to engage people up front in our culture. What is the culture? What do we want? What does success defined at Tennessee Tech? And what is the strategy that we're trying to achieve?
So how about when you have to decipher who the actual stakeholders are? Because I mean, and there's many, I'm sure, obviously, but there are some that probably think they might be and they might not fit in the equation. How do you determine who those folks are?
Well, it really depends on the decision that you're making. Yeah. But like Chrissi already said, every decision impacts all of your stakeholders. Okay, no matter what it is. If it's a decision that impacts the students on our campuses, there is some trickle over to everybody, to donors, to season ticket holders, to alumni, to student athletes, to coaches, to faculty, to staff. So we need to know exactly what that is. So really, everybody is our stakeholder. There are some key decisions that impact stakeholders at a higher level, but every decision also impacts stakeholders in ways that we really need to analyze as you're making decisions, as you're working to lead your departments.
I actually think, just adding to that, which is a really great answer, is I think that's one of the mistakes we can make, is that we think, well, the student athlete is at the center of every one of our decisions. And that may or may not be the case. But the perception of our other stakeholders or audience members is that they are, right? And so, in our world, perception equals reality, and then we have to obviously choose how we are going to take on that perception. But if we're not cognizant of the fact that maybe it's not a direct impact to them, they feel like it is, and at the end of the day, it's their experience, it's their reality. So we have to be sure we're conscious of that. So.
Absolutely.
That's a great point. And then I guess to go along with that, then as you know who they are, now it's a matter of weighing how does their opinion, kind of fit into what we're trying to determine. And for example, your presidents, obviously, our presidents are critical, absolutely key in the thought process of this. But sometimes they might have a thought on something, and then you have your own personal belief or thought that might differ. How do you weigh those different things? And especially when you're dealing with a sport admin and a coach, or a coach and a student athlete, you have a lot of different conflicting. How do you determine, or how do you weigh those up?
Yeah, I think that I'm fortunate at Delaware that our president is very involved and engaged, and right from the beginning have brought him along in all the conversations, and his voice has been a part of everything that we've done. A big part of that is our values are incredibly aligned, and they have been right from the beginning. And so, we may have differing opinions on certain things, but at the end of the day, because our values are aligned, we usually find common ground in them. But I think the key is just consistent communication with him and your president and your leadership.
Yeah, that's great.
And that's critical. We're the same way. Phil Oldham, our president at Tennessee Tech, is absolutely dynamite. We're aligned. We have regular conversations about anything going on in our department. That doesn't mean we agree on every decision, and we have different opinions, but he allows me to express my opinion and what I think may be the best decision. He may advise me in a way that maybe I wasn't quite thinking about, which is good. That's what makes for a healthy relationship and a vibrant organization. Yeah. And there are some decisions that when it comes down to it, maybe I'm someplace where he's not, but he's the president. He gets to make that decision sometimes. Yeah. Okay? But as long as I have advised him and given him the best knowledge that I have and the information that I have, then we can make the best decision as a campus. And when I leave his office, or we make a decision, then we're on the same page and we move forward.
Yeah. I think a big part of that is what we even talked about from the beginning is as we've set strategy for athletics, it is directly aligned with the academic strategy. And we're here to create national relevance for Delaware, as well as create great student athlete experiences. And so having that alignment when we have to make choices, because strategy is about making choices at the end of the day. Right. If we're aligned in that, we come back to it. And I think the conversations you have, and oftentimes the ones where we do differ, brings out some of the best decisions we can make because of the perspective. I think that's right. He's got the full perspective of the entire institution. I do my best, as I'm sure you do, to try and really put my university citizen hat on. Right. But oftentimes there's things that I don't know about that he is obviously very well aware of.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. Great point. So I think when we relate decision making into the corporate world or the business world, maybe there's that thought process that the primary job of a president or a CEO, shareholder value, if you will. So when we talk about our stakeholders and our shareholders in the world of college athletics, who I guess really fits that mold best in terms of getting that value? Obviously, donors probably come to mind, but I mean,
Well, donors do come to mind, but at campuses like Tennessee Tech, I mean, our number one stakeholder is actually our students. The majority of the funding that we receive at Tennessee Tech is general institutional support. Well, that's generated by the students. So, I mean, you really have to keep in mind, that where your resources come from, but everybody is a stakeholder, okay? Everybody. I mean, it could be someone in the admissions office and decisions that we're making and ways we're interacting with. It could be housing. It could be donors. It could be a corporate partner. It could be student athletes of a particular team. So really, everybody is a stakeholder. And really, what you need to do is work with them to get everybody on the same page. And that takes constant communication. Using your head coaches to communicate with their assistant coaches and their student athletes. Everybody on your team being a great communicator.
Yeah, I love that he started with students, and I agree. I think particularly with how Delaware's funded. We don't exist. Well, no athletic program exists without the university, as we know. But we definitely don't exist without the university support and the student support. And it's one of the things that we've worked really hard at is really being viewed more as an investment versus an expense at Delaware, and really contributing to the overall academic mission in a variety of different ways. And that could be offering internship opportunities. We have a great nutrition program where now we have those nutrition students coming in and participating in a sport rotation within our athletic department, which they've never been able to do before. Now their career paths are changing because they're being exposed to that. So really being a part of advancing that academic mission and being a part of the institution in a way outside of we're fielding teams, we're wins and losses, which are clearly critically important. I'm not at all suggesting that it's not, but expanding the concept of what actually athletics can be at a university. And again, that idea of we're an investment and we're not an expense. Because you treat your investments a lot differently, usually, than you do your expenses.
Right.
Yes, you do.
Yeah, what goes that old adage? I mean, our student athletes are our customers a lot of the time. I mean, you have to have that mentality because they're such a key, it's what we're there for. It's why we do what we do.
We are. It is about the student athletes, and sometimes I think we lose focus on that.
Yeah.
But a lot of our decisions we have to look at. Now, they're not always at the center.
Right.
But we really have to look at it because our role is to serve the students of our university, but specifically the student athletes, and helping them achieve their goals that they set for themselves and that we set for them. And one of the things I talk to our staff about all the time is helping them reach their fullest individual potential, whatever that is, okay? Chrissy's individual potential is different than mine, but helping them reach that, whatever that is. And that's a key part of decision making and a key part. So if you think about stakeholders, each individual student athlete, they're a different stakeholder on every team and every program. They're different. And sometimes you have to take unique approaches with them.
Yeah. Think about coaches too, right? I mean,
they're all different.
Yep.
Yes.
They're unique.
All unique in their own
Yes,
way,
yes.
absolutely.
And that's part of the leadership challenge is how do we help them? How do we lead them? And you have to lead everybody a little bit differently, and you have to interact with them as stakeholders differently.
You're right, and I think that'd probably be our final question as we look to wrap it up is, I think a lot of it's the relationships too. So it's these relationships you have with everyone. So how do you determine if those relationships are working? How do you, are you getting value out of all of these relationships that you have?
It's an interesting question.
Yeah.
I mean, I wake up every day because, culture is key and relationships are key to the culture. And I mean, I think you could have the best strategy. My team, if they saw this, they'd laugh. I talk about culture eat strategy for breakfast, in every way, shape, or form. And so, key to that is relationships, right? And making sure that you are paying attention and asking and listening and understanding where your teams are, where your staff is, where your coaches are, and also your donors, everybody that is involved, and keeping a finger on the pulse. And, it's conversations. I mean, it's constant feedback. It's just being present. It's just being visible and present. I think it's interesting. People, I don't know if it's unfortunate or fortunately, I think the more visible you are, the more they think you care. And so I think that's a big component to the work that we do. I can tell you, especially as I came into Delaware, that was really important for me to show up. Just to show up every day.
Yeah, much like myself in my first year. So I'm amazed at how many times I tell myself, I got to be at that.
Yeah, you just got to show up
because it means something.
It does.
It
does more than you even realize.
Right.
More than you even realize.
Yeah. Mark, the same thought?
Well, I think there's different ways. I mean, the key indicators. And everything is different. So if you're looking at your donor base, key indicators are you growing donors? Is the dollar amount increasing? If you look at people that are season ticket holders, are your season tickets increasing? But then with the student athletes, the feedback we get from our year and exit interviews, whether it be written or the verbal interviews that we do, students talking to student groups. So there's all kinds of metrics that we can look at to see how we are doing. And really, for each stakeholder group, it's a little different, on how we get that feedback and then how we react to it.
Right, absolutely. Well, Chrissi, Mark, it was a broad topic, but it's one that certainly always deserves to be discussed, and I appreciate your thoughts.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you having us on.